Sue Borison here from Your Teen Media, and today I'm with Frank Shushok Jr., who is Vice President for Student Affairs at Virginia Tech. So Frank, thanks so much for being with me right now. You are a key player in this whole story for our parents who have older kids.
Yeah.
And so the first question I want to ask you, which of course is changing so rapidly that you can answer this knowing that we understand that tomorrow could be a different story, but how are you at Virginia Tech planning for the fall?
Well, Susan, first let me just say I understand the boat that many parents are in. I have a senior in high school this year who is still trying to make a college choice before May 1st. So I saw that he tweeted yesterday that he needed to make a college choice, and I replied, "Yes, you do." It's good for our whole family. But I also have a junior who is at Virginia Tech and a freshman in high school. So I'm able to see up front the levels of anxiety and uncertainty that students are experiencing, whether they're in college or whether they're in high school trying to find their way to a college, or whether they're in high school thinking about what the future is going to hold for the rest of their high school experience. So I understand that. And, what I would say about Virginia Tech is, as I think we're doing what a lot of institutions are doing, is managing a variety of scenarios. We want to plan out a number of approaches so that we're able to be ready to go when we have enough health information, public health information, to know that the decision that we're making is responsible. So I'm a little hesitant to say that making a decision at the end of April about what we're going to do in the fall is a good idea, because we still have time and to collect lots of good data about what the public health implications are. So one of the things I'm talking to parents about is, I know you have a lot of anxiety around all sorts of issues, from do I sign a lease for my returning student to live off campus, or am I going to be able to live on campus as a first year student coming in? Those kinds of things. And as difficult as I know that is, the thing that I recommend right now is to have a little patience, to take a deep breath, and to realize that there's a little time left before decisions have to be made, although it feels really urgent. Us human beings, we crave certainty, we crave clarity, and the best thing we can do is to kind of back up and take a deep breath, and to try to find patience, even though that's really counterintuitive. I shared an experience about my son, Christian, who left senior year, this senior year in high school for spring break, and he's never gone back. And I realized that I assumed he was so upset about the different format for his graduation. And one time I talked to my wife, and she said, you should talk to Christian about how he's feeling. And when I asked him, he said, Dad, it's missing graduation is not really that big a deal to me. He said, Dad, we're in a pandemic. And what I realized is that grief was mine, that I was carrying that grief. That grief was about a picture I had in my mind of what things were going to look like, and what celebrating his graduation and bringing people together would look like. And so I know that's hard. And the thing about grief is that we all grieve at different rates and in different ways. Sometimes we feel angry. Sometimes we feel anxious. Sometimes we feel numb. And sometimes we feel all those things at the same time. And so just recognizing that, realizing that, and then stepping back and taking a moment to analyze what's our grief, what's our kids' grief, and what we can control. And right now, what we control is kind of our perspective.
That's great. You're very wise.
Oh, thank you.
And so in human nature, being that uncertainty is so difficult to sit with, is there a date in mind for most universities to kind of make a decision, even though we know that still could change afterwards? Like if the decision is we're going to go and have kids come to our university in the fall, obviously that could change. But for Virginia Tech? Is there a timeline of any sort?
Yeah, I think we've been hesitant to nail down a particular time because we're doing these different scenarios. We're going to be ready to do a variety of different things. We're gonna drill down on the details and operations of all those things, so that we're not making a decision and then trying to operationalize that. So I think we want to go as long as we can, uh, to wait for as much public health data as we can before making a decision. However, we have to do that in a way that our parents and our students can handle. The bottom line, at some point, we're going to have to make a decision, and I think that will be before midsummer. That's for sure. We've made the immediate decisions that we had to make, going to an online format for orientation, um, canceling our summer programs. But I suspect by midsummer we'll have nailed down what our plan for the fall is. And I will say, I think all of us are anxious to return to a residential experience. It's a very important part of delivering a Virginia Tech education and an education for lots of colleges and universities. And I think we're going to do everything that we can to return to a residential experience, assuming that the health and well-being of our students is at the forefront and can be protected. And so we're going to follow that path. And at some point, those things are going to converge. I do think that April is pretty early for schools to be nailing down what they're going to do.
Right. So you have a group of admitted students who have to make a decision very soon. What have you been doing to keep in touch with them and to make them feel like this is, Virginia Tech should be their choice?
Yeah, well, of course, one of our big matriculation events is something that we call Hokey Focus. It's a big day to showcase Virginia Tech to our admitted students. And we were able to convert that to an online format, which involved students digitally. They could ask questions, participate in individual sessions. We know that that's not a replacement, but we did the best we can. We've been doing a lot of town halls, live town halls where students and families can engage with us. Our admissions counselors have been reaching out and having conversations. It's an all hands on deck to care for our students. So one of the things that I haven't been a big fan of is the terminology social distancing. I think it's physical distancing, and instead we're focusing on social solidarity. And that means we want to be as engaged and committed in social solidarity with our students who are coming to Virginia Tech, and even our students who are already here. In fact, in this week and last week, we've been in the process of scheduling 1,800 Zoom conversations with our students to understand how they're doing, what it's like being at home, what are the things that are concerning them, what they're learning from the online format, and what are things that we can be doing to be helping them in that process. So we're doing that. We're doing all sorts of outreach efforts to our admitted students, but also with our returning students. And of course, I think I mentioned my senior son who hasn't nailed down his college choice. He is knee deep in 3 different admitted student chat groups talking about the college experience with those students, why they want to go to that institution. And he's also been interviewing faculty. He's been scheduling appointments to talk with faculty, and they've been very generous in saying yes. He's scheduled times to talk with students that are already at that institution. So again, I think we've got to reframe and say, it's not physical, but the social world still exists in a different format. And how do we create a plan for nurturing and developing and sustaining relationships, meaningful relationships in a different format in this temporary situation that we're in?
So I know that silver linings is getting old, but,
Yeah.
but there are these opportunities right now that our kids they're showing us that they can go and make a phone call to a professor at a university where they never would have done that in the past. Why would they have done it? So it is, it's creating a resilience and an initiative in these kids. It's very inspiring. So let's move into this year's juniors.
Yeah.
They're in a particularly challenging place. What do they do?
Yeah, so I want to talk about a construct that I think is really important. One of my friends is one of the he's passed away, but he's one of the foremost most researchers in the construct of hope. And hope is a real researched construct, and it's the idea that you set goals, and the mere fact of setting goals is a really important aspect of hope. And then that you have pathways towards those goals. And then the third part, which is really important, is that you have a sense of agency, the ability to influence that pathway towards that goal day by day, step by step. So in this situation, the goals, by and large, remain the same. They have goals about who they want to be, where they might want to go to college, that they want to go to college, what they might study, the kind of person they want to become. Those goals are the same. The pathways have shifted a little bit because of the current context, but there are new pathways. And what I like that you just said is I think our students are very, very resilient. And if they have someone with them that can help them chart out, hey, the goal hasn't changed. The way you get to the goal might change just a little bit. And you have agency in influencing that day by day. That is hope. And I've heard some things about our teens that they're going to, this is going to affect them forever. Actually, I think it is going to affect them forever, but I think it's going to help them be more resilient, more adaptable. They're going to have greater perspective. And I think they're going to be more hopeful because they're going to say, life is going to throw obstacles at you, but I know how to work around obstacles. And I've got a good example of that. I remember when I was a junior in high school, and there are pathways to be made towards the goal. It just wasn't what it looked like it would be a year ago.
So just to the concrete, I love that. It's so beautiful. We've given a lot of uncertainty still. Is there anything that you know for sure that juniors should be doing right now?
Yes. So here's a couple things that I think is really important is the structure of school has been removed. And so I think the key, and this is related to the goals part and the pathways, is how do you build a new structure around yourself? So how do you stay engaged with people who continue to inspire you? How can you schedule Zoom conversations with teachers that you had regular interaction with? A lot of our teachers are craving interaction with students and dialogues about learning and thinking about things with students. And so are there some ways to develop a structure, a weekly conversation with the student, a reading group? Is there some goals that you can set around some books that you would like to read and build a schedule around that? So I think the key thing is without the structure that's handed to us by school, we need to build an alternative structure that keeps us growing and moving forward in relationship with ideas and people and peers in ways that help keep us growing. And so I think that building a structure around yourself is really important. Us human beings, we are driven by structure, and absence of structure, we can be incredibly unproductive.
Okay, so should a kid who is a junior right now, who's living through this crazy time, uncharted, like, we've never experienced this before, and they certainly never have. Should their college essay be about this experience, or is it going to get tiresome for the admissions office?
My guess is that it will get tiresome. I think the key is about being authentic. And if anything that I've learned about the admissions process through my own kids and being an administrator at multiple universities is that what plays well is what is real and authentic to who someone is. So if this is the story that is most compelling. And someone can talk about how they built a structure that helped them keep going, how they found hope, then tell that story. But if it's an easy grab, don't pick that one. Now, dig deep, find in within you the story that makes you unique, that tells the narrative about who you have been and are trying to become and what that has been about.
That's great. So you're hearing from kids a lot. Tell us like the top 2 questions they're asking you.
Oh, the top 2 questions are very much about the details. You know, what will the fall be like? Should I sign a lease? They're very practical things. But interestingly enough, when I dig down, most of that is often parents who are pushing those questions at their kids. And in many ways, lots of our kids are rolling with it in a way that sometimes us adults are, including me. So uh, I think the more questions that I'm hearing from students are about alternate pathways to their goal. So I want to go back to that. So what do I do if I had planned on having a summer internship and that summer internship has been canceled? And that's why I think it's worth having someone sit next to them and think about alternative pathways to that. Is there a structure you can build to get that experience? Because the internship wasn't the goal. The goal is usually the job or what that internship is going to teach you. So are there some different things that you can do to allow that to happen? I talked to a student who said, I have been so scheduled and I've had this dream of starting this business. And he told me what the business is. And he said, well, given that all this has happened, my internship got canceled. I'm going to start this. I'm going to start this business. So that's just an example of the creativity that is inside our young people, and that if we can sit with them and help them think of possibility and potential as opposed to obstacles, we're going to do them big favors because they have it within them to do great things.
Okay, so parents are calling you, probably more than usual. What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that the pathway may be a little different, but the destination is going to unfold, and it's going to unfold in a way that has a positive, important influence on their son or daughter's development as a human being. And we are going to be back in business in a more traditional format than we are right now, sooner than we think. And we just need to be patient, to explore possibility, and look at the opportunity that obstacle brings to us in our learning and our development. I know none of us would have chosen this, but it is what we have. And so the question is, what do we do with it? And the educational experiences, this included, are unfolding in ways that are helping our young people develop into the kinds of leaders and humans that will make a big difference in the world.
That's a great note to end on. Frank Shushok Jr., Vice President for Student Affairs at Virginia Tech, thank you so much for your time. This was so valuable. Thank you.
Thank you.